What's up, everybody? I'm Outlaw Morgan. Welcome to ON Fishing, and today I want to talk to you guys about my last trip out on the water. What I had rigged up, what worked, what didn't work, and why it pretty much came down to one bait and one bait only. Let's go. All right, gang, so this past weekend I loaded up the truck, loaded up the boat, hooked everything up, took off, drove an hour and a half up to Fellsmere, Florida, and fished Headwater Lake. I'm sure even if you're not in Florida, you've probably heard of Headwater Lake. It's a huge lake, and it used to be closed and only open to kayakers only. Then they put a ramp in, and everybody in the world showed up with their power boats and beat this lake to death with a baseball bat. But we all keep going back. Headwater has produced some giants. We know there's some big fish out there. And you can have a real quality day of fishing where maybe if you don't catch a giant, you can catch a lot of smaller fish and have a fulfilled day where you leave with your heart content. However, if you follow me closely, you know the past couple fishing trips that I've had out at Headwater have been challenging. Now, just like anybody else, I've got waypoints, I've got pins dropped in my phone. I've got a routine. I've got tracks. I've got places where I've had really good success out there. And so I go check on those areas. And just like anybody else, sometimes those areas don't produce. Now, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And I realized that's what I've done the last 3 trips out there. So I want to talk to you about killing your comfort. What I mean by killing your comfort is instead of going out there and not hooking up instantly and getting frustrated, maybe you need to pre-plan a little better. Maybe you need to do a little deep diving, maybe some research. I'll give you an example of what worked for me. I went to Google. I opened up the map of this lake, satellite view. I zoomed in on north, south, west, east, whatever the case is, and everything in between. I sat there and stared at this map for maybe 2.5 hours, and that's not an exaggeration. I was going through it with a fine-tooth comb. I know what the contours of this lake look like. I know where the 20-foot holes are. I know where the 17-foot holes are, etc. I fished those. Hadn't been having luck. So I was like, okay, it is time for something new. It is time for something different. You're going to have to venture out there and go where no man's gone before. Well, maybe he has, because it's fishing. But either way, you got to find a place on this lake where people aren't really fishing it much. You know what I mean? Like where the average boater guy's not pushing down into this certain area. They're not, over here it looks like it's shallow, but then it opens up. So if you can just push through that, you can make it to the promised land. Whatever the case is, I went through this map and I found a place where I was like, right there. I've never been there. That doesn't look like a place that everybody's going to congregate. It's not going to be a community hole. And that's where I want to be. I don't like being stacked up on top of boats. I'm not a fan of community holes. I'm not a fan of me sitting there fishing and everybody around, they got 8 other boats around me fishing and I'm struggling and we're all watching each other and bam, buddy hooks up and he's woohoo and hollering and I'm like, man, what am I not doing right? Anyway, I don't want to be around that. I like venturing out into the places where I'm all by myself, and I found the place on the map. I called my buddy Beards, and I said, look, I've got it. If we're going back to Headwater, I know exactly where we need to go. And it turned out to be a major success. We didn't catch any giants. I think the biggest was maybe 4, possibly 4.5. We didn't weigh it. But my average fish was 3 pounds, and I caught a lot of them. The cameras, for whatever reason, kept turning off, kept having issues. So a lot of the fish that we actually caught, you didn't even see, but we still had a good day. Let's talk about the baits that actually worked for me and the baits that didn't work for me. So when we first hit the water, it was nice and calm, low winds. There was a little bit of moving water, maybe 3-mile-per-hour wind, something to that effect. So of course I was trying to get on some top water and I was throwing this Mega Bass Eye Loud bait here. As you can see, it's a fairly decent sized bait. Big bait, big bass, that's what they always say, but this was my go-to, so I re-rigged this rod with this bait, hoping that I would get a big bass on a top water bite, but guess what? That never happened, which really sucks, because let's be honest, we all love top water blow-ups. The sun's sitting at a low point, the wind's calm, The water's moving, but not too much. You're sending this across the toolies, hyacinths, reed line, whatever you're throwing across, and just waiting for that massive, you know, and your heart gets going. Later that day, I saw a guy that was actually fishing in the same area as us, and he asked about topwater blowups, and I said, haven't had a one. And he said that he didn't either. So it always feels good when your failures or shortcomings are shared, right? But this one, not so much. I know you guys have seen this in other videos that I've done, but this is the Mega Bass iGlide. I believe the number is 75. It is a big bait. It is the size of my hand. It is a flashy bait. It has really great color. The tail's melting a little bit from the heat, but I threw this a handful of times hoping that I would get a smasher on it. Nothing happened. So I retired this one early. I think what I need to do is I need to take the one rod, one reel, one bait challenge and just go out there and throw this thing all day. Don't get me wrong. I've gotten fish on this, but it did not work at Headwater this past Saturday, and it got retired fairly early. This is the live target. I believe it's a gizzard shad, if I remember correctly, but a good looking bait. Love the details, love the fin, love the color. Love the fact that this kind of looks like a shad, matches the hatch pretty well. Never picked it up, never threw it, but I just wanted to show it to you anyway. I skipped over this one to go to something else. And yes, just like any South Florida bass fisherman, I did have a chatterbait rigged up. I believe this is a Z-Man chatterbait. You can see it's weedless. It has a skirt that's bluegill colors, paired with a gambler crawl on the back of it as a trailer. It's got like red, black, gold flake in it. Anyway, this was on the deck, but I never threw this either. Moving on to something I did actually throw. A lot of you guys know how much I love the Gambler Big Easy, 5.25 inches long. And I normally throw this weightless so I can work the top water column, let it have a slow drift down, hoping they catch it on the fall. But this time I wanted to do a little modification hack. So I used a 5/0 hook with a 1/4 inch weight right here on the shaft. So this is a swim bait hook. It's got the screw on the front, weighted. And the hack that I did was I went to Walmart and I bought some cheap spinner baits for like $1 a piece. Took them apart, used a swivel barrel and a clip, and put this piece on here, which I was hoping, I threw it in my pool, it works really well, and I was hoping that would make a world of difference. I mean, the color kind of looks like a bass, maybe a baby bowfin or something, I don't know. But I was hoping the sun would cut through the water and make this thing just flash around a whole lot, and a big would smash it. But I only had a couple of dink bites on this, very short bites. It didn't do what I had hoped that it would do, but maybe another day it will yield the results I was hoping for. But I did at least throw this one. So in a nutshell, while I was out on the water trying to formulate a pattern, I came to realize that they're not going to hit top water. Then I tried the moving glide bait, right, which is a slow moving big bait. They didn't hit that. Then I switched up to a faster moving smaller bait, the Big Easy from Gambler. Got a couple little nibbles on that, little pullback, short bites or whatever, but didn't do what I thought it was going to do, which told me in my head that basically I need to slow this down. I need to do more of a focus bait, something I can pitch up into the reed line, weighted, just keep popping it, which would be a worm or maybe a crawl, a bug, whatever you're into. I chose a worm. However, I think it was a combination of two things. It was the worm, and ultimately it was the color. By the end of that trip, all I threw for hours was this worm. You can see it has a burner tail worm, speed worm, whatever you want to call it. It is watermelon with red flake. This is a zoom worm. This is the smaller version of the worm that I was throwing because I basically burnt out my whole bag of baits. But this is the same worm, but I was throwing the mag worm, which is much wider, much longer, more grubbier, probably more attractive to bigger fish. I don't know if it's the color or if it's the flake or if it's the action of this tail. Once I ran out of the burner worms, the mag worms that I was throwing, I tried to switch to something that was a different color and I stopped getting bites. So, you know, color matters. Size matters, doesn't it, ladies? Anyway, all right, guys. So there you have it. That's pretty much the bait that I ended up using the entire day once I figured out the pattern of what was working. So look, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell, choose all for notifications. Come stick around. You have nothing to lose. And I will see you guys on the next one. Keep fishing, keep casting, keep catching. See you guys later.